Okay, so go ahead, John. We already have Jose and Shalimar, and two more two more people will get on the line quickly. And but I'm recording this meeting in any case, so I will share it as I did with the previous one. I probably got the link. So
Awesome. Okay, well, perfect. So to start, thank you guys all for joining us today and taking some time. We're really looking forward to the partnership. My name's John Rideout. I'm an account executive here with Alert Logic. I cover the Southeast United States as well as the Caribbean and Latin America alongside Escala. I do have another colleague of mine on the line, Jason Gittens, as a solutions architect of ours, and he will help talk through kind of our pricing structure and more elements on the partner side. Jason's actually director over on our channels team. So with that, guys, the goal today is really for us to talk about Alert Logic from a sales standpoint. So what to listen for when you guys are talking with customers as far as, being able to maybe position Alert Logic. And then from there, really kind of the value proposition of our solution and how we present, how we sell to start giving you guys a baseline understanding of really what it is we do and how we go and acquire customers and we'll acquire business with you. Does that sound like a fair expectation, Alejandro?
yes, and we can then do some specific questions on how to answer some doubts that the customer might have, and to basically gear them or take them towards choosing the solution over any other solution or no solution at all.
Yes. Yeah, we can absolutely talk about that common objection. So I'll go ahead and start going with a couple of slides. Guys, if anyone has any questions as I go, or if I need to slow down or add clarity in some areas, please don't hesitate to jump in, ask a question, let me know.
Okay, go ahead.
So where I want to start here is just kind of is high level explaining Alert Logic. So what is Alert Logic, right? It is not just a security tool, and we are not just a managed service, provider. We kind of bundle our offering together with technology, people, processes, and security experts to really provide a fully end-to-end outcome of optimal security posture and optimal compliance position as well. And we'll go deeper into that, but at a high level, we call ourselves a security as a service company. So we are a SaaS offering that basically comes with security experts included. We really focus on, protecting environmental footprints wherever they exist. Whether that's in a cloud environment, in an on-premise environment, et cetera. Obviously, we're seeing the most growth in AWS, and that's a major area that we're focused on. And we want visibility into every layer of the customer's environment. So, all the way from the configuration, networks layer, the systems layer, and the application layer. And at those various layers, we want to then, we want to help our customers, and really we're going to do the heavy lifting here, but we want to assess all of their meaningful security data and all of that traffic. At the most critical layer, we want to help them identify or potentially block malicious traffic. And with that, we also want to help them to detect threats, anomalies, and indicators of compromise to, mitigate any potential damage and stop potential breaches. And with that, we want to help them to meet their compliance mandates. So PCI, HIPAA, FFIEC, GLBA, and many more. A big part of our solution, not only are we going to provide the security tooling and the monitoring, we're also going to make compliance much easier by providing pre-configured reports within our UI that help to show, hey, here's how we're checking these compliance boxes. And we'll go deeper on that. So jumping into a couple of reasons on why, we make really, advanced security posture fast and affordable. and so, what Alert Logic encompasses, again, is really, technology and tools, the necessary analytics that comes with that, tried and true best practice security process, as well as, security analysts and experts who are really monitoring those tools, becoming an extension of our customers' teams, and helping to achieve the value. Now, how that manifests and why there's a lot of value to our customers is because our solution really comes ready to use. So, when a deal is sold, let's say, for instance, like when we get this IATA deal in, we're going to assign a project manager and we're going to help deploy the solution so that it is, fully implemented, running correctly, and set up, and they're achieving value in a turnkey fashion almost right away. And with that, we're going to continuously, update. We're continuously creating content, and we're going to continuously update the tool. So we're going to make sure that it's up to date, online, and running 24/7. So for the customer, that means they're going to have the optimal security posture they want, with expert tooling and processes, but they don't have to hire any staff or train any people. They don't have to go out and buy any individual tools or pieces of hardware on their own. They don't have to clean or normalize or put processes around any of the security data they're inputting, and they don't have to worry about building content or updating the tool, because we're going to do all of that on a continual basis from the start. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, we understand what you're saying.
Okay, great. So quick slide, just to show that we work with a wide variety of customers. We're trusted by industry leaders in almost every vertical, as you can see here. And what I like to point out is this gives us a significant advantage in that if a customer is going at securing their environment on their own, they maybe have access to tools or they have some security staff, but what they're lacking is that visibility into over 4,000 customer environments, which we have. And what that allows is not only are our security experts seeing a large number of environments and different security events, that visibility into these different verticals gives us a unique capability to stay ahead of what's out there. So for instance, if we see a threat in the retail or e-commerce space, not only are we going to help that customer stop it, but we're also going to then take that threat that we saw, push it to our threat analytics and our threat research teams and start reverse engineering that threat to almost immediately push out coverage to protect all of the rest of our customers, like those folks in the financial services space or the technology space or the manufacturing space. So we achieve a very significant efficiencies of scale approach into our ability to identify and stay ahead of malicious security activity. Now let's talk about some common ways that we engage with customers, or really a lot of the times, why customers talk to us and what it's about. So a significant piece is desired outcomes, right? Organizations want to be secure, but with that may mean, hey, I don't want to deal with as many security alerts. I want more accurate information. Or, hey, I don't have the staff, and I don't want to hire the people or make my people focus all of their time or so much time on security because it's difficult. And then another piece of that is web application security, and we'll talk about in a second, where in AWS, securing the web application layer is 100% on the client, and for a variety of reasons, that can be difficult to do. So a lot of times customers say, hey, my web application can't go down or be compromised because it's so important to my business. I need help with that. Of course, another desired outcome is, an effective cloud posture. So moving safely to the cloud, a lot of organizations, and Alejandro, I think you're seeing some of this, are starting to realize, hey, I want to move to the cloud because it's more efficient and agile and it's a better way to do things, but I have no idea how I'm going to secure my workloads there because traditional security tools aren't built for the cloud. And we can help with that. And in doing that, help them secure their environment in a way where, they're still going to be able to benefit from that agility and elasticity that the cloud offers. And then another piece is, putting security parameters in place like Alert Logic that will still allow for scalability, within their applications, for instance. Third major desired outcome is compliance, right? So anytime you're talking about healthcare organizations, retail e-commerce organizations, or financial services, banks or organizations, they have to meet these compliance mandates. And, we can often explain, hey, we can help you check these boxes and meet your compliance sooner. We can help you report on that and do it in a much more efficient process. And we can make that very demonstratable for yourself internally and to your auditor on checking those compliance boxes. Again, we're very focused on helping customers in public cloud environments like AWS. However, if they have a multi-cloud or a hybrid footprint, we can deploy our solution across the entire environment and bring all that security data into one single pane of glass. So if you guys are talking to people who have some stuff on-prem and are doing some stuff in AWS, we can protect that the exact same way and bring it into one singular security view for them.
And Google Cloud, if I were to have someone, asking to secure a Google Cloud environment.
Yep, that's not a problem. We're fully available and optimized to deploy our solutions into Google Cloud.
Okay, so you're able to read all the logs and the same, you would prefer AWS, but Google Cloud is not an issue. Is that a fair statement?
Let me take that one, John. So yes is the answer. We have launched Google Cloud earlier this year. There are a few features and functions that are more manual in Google Cloud, but otherwise, yes, full service available, vulnerability scanning, network scanning, log aggregation and correlation, and web application as well.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So a couple others I'll move through a little bit faster, but again, as far as workloads, helping folks to protect their web application, their entire cloud workload footprint from top to bottom, and then oftentimes, the timing, right? Whether someone is in, an exploring phase, an active project, or hey, I need something in place by this date for compliance requirements. And in many cases, that can be driven by an event, right? Which is either, again, hey, I have to be doing something by this day to meet my FFIEC or my HIPAA or my PCI compliance. Or maybe someone was breached and they're saying, hey, I was breached and I had to pay a lot of money for a certain kind of attack. That can't happen again. Or maybe they've been working with a legacy vendor and they're getting to a point where they're saying, hey, I want a better solution that requires less work or is more efficient or is able to work in the cloud, is often another place where we can come in and from a timing standpoint be successful. And a lot of times, there's organizations are undergoing changes, which it sounds like is what you guys are seeing, whether that's a cloud migration, or maybe they're standing up a new application or environment in the cloud, or maybe they're, organizationally, they have a cloud-first initiative. And so, those are kind of all timing factors in areas where we can help win. This slide is the shared security model. I would not be surprised if you guys have seen this slide. This is actually an AWS slide, which we've made some comments on. And what it's really discussing is on the left-hand side here in gray, this is showing the shared security responsibility. So on the left is the things that AWS is doing for the customer automatically from a security standpoint. So at the foundation, they're providing the compute, the storage, the database, the network segmentation, the DDoS protection, and all the way up to the host layer, the root access, the hypervisor hardening, everything from the hypervisor down, effectively AWS is taking care of from a security standpoint. And quite frankly, a lot of organizations think that, hey, I'm using AWS, I'm secure, I'm okay. Well, the reality is AWS has outlined there's still a variety of things at every layer of the stack that the customer is responsible for. And we've outlined, those things and how we can help. So for instance, at the foundational layer, it's still on the customer to, be configured correctly. For instance, if you leave S3 buckets open to the public and, you have data taken, that's not Amazon's fault. It's up to the customers to kind of manage their configuration. from there at the network layer, it's still the customer's job to monitor their network, to perform vulnerability scans and analyze logs. And then again, up at the host layer, that continuous log analysis, scanning and threat detection, that is the customer's responsibility. And then when you talk about the application layer, that's 100% on the customer to secure. AWS is not concerned with, what's going in and out of your web application or what kind of traffic is hitting it. That's the customer's responsibility. And as you can see here, these are areas where we can help them, manage that security responsibility. So when you talk about threats and legacy security,
my apologies. Can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
So just to point out to the rest of the team, specifically what this slide is saying is that anything that it's actually patching a server or touching or fixing a risk that has been identified by Alert Logic is the areas in white, which would be customer responsibilities or Scala responsibilities, or the partner's responsibility. So,
right.
So, and that's something that could be covered with another solution that does active patching, and we know of Trend Micro. We don't know of any others, but that could be done with another solution or manually. Okay, that's that would be a first statement.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but what this slide is to show is that traditionally with security tools, it's fairly easy to understand. This is good traffic, let it through, or based on a signature set, this is bad traffic, block it. Now the reality is a significant amount of the traffic coming through, especially when you're talking about an edge device that has a snap, just a quick second to make a decision to let something through or not. There's a significant amount of suspicious activity that can oftentimes come through, and that is really what needs to be investigated. And that's why, quite frankly, a solution like Alert Logic, where we're taking that data, we're running it through our correlation analytics platform. We have real analysts looking at it. Allows for a much better security posture than just simply trying to block bad traffic or let good traffic in. Taking a deeper kind of human expertise and machine learning approach is a much more successful way to go about it. Now let's talk a little bit about the security challenge that organizations face. And so this graphic here on the left basically shows, and this goes for most companies we've talked to, from Fortune levels down to startups. The reality is there's a ton of stuff that needs to be done when you talk about securing an environment, right? Protecting your applications, from attacks, and managing all those vulnerabilities, all the way to hey, if you do have security tools and they're kicking off events, understanding what do these events mean? Is this real? Is this actionable? And then what do we need to do to fix what we're seeing? There's a large footprint, and it goes on 24/7. You have to monitor and be able to take action on this stuff around the clock. Well, most organizations have a security team that can handle that about this amount of time. So maybe during business hours, 5 days a week, they can manage that. They can keep an eye on it, or they only have so much time to focus on security because they're doing so many other things. So that leads to a lot of abandoned alerts, and quite frankly, security being neglected, because there are too many alerts. There's too many false positives, or it's low fidelity, so they really never know what they're looking for, and they're not able to manage it 24/7. Now this next slide basically shows how Alert Logic helps us solve that problem. So with our solution, we're taking all that data, we're analyzing it to cut down on false positives, and we're focusing on the attack vectors that matters. So from there, you're going to reduce the amount of alerts that you're getting, and we're going to help you to reduce the amount of effort it takes to fix that. Because when you get an alert from us, A, it's real and actionable, it's been researched, And from there, we're going to give you steps to help you fix that. And when I say give you steps, that means when we see an alert, it goes to a security expert in our security operations center who is analyzing that security event or incident. The customer is not just getting a dummy alert. They're going to have a security expert from our team calling them and saying, hey, here's what's going on in your environment. Here's what we've seen. And from there, we'll work with your team to help you fix that while we're monitoring 24/7. So it takes the burden off of your customer's plate. And we're going to help do that undifferentiated heavy lifting and only escalate to our customer, or more likely to a partner like a Scala when there's something you need to know. So if, for instance, you have a customer like Snap or IATA, for instance, we're going to monitor all the traffic 24/7. And when we see something that we know is malicious, potentially we could escalate to your NOC or to someone on your team, Alejandro, and say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what we need to do to fix it. And then you guys can take action on behalf of that customer. And effectively, the customer is getting an end-to-end security outcome, and all they're doing is paying a simple monthly cost so they can focus on other key areas of their business. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay, perfect.
My apologies, I was muted.
No worries. So I'll go into a slightly simplified slide on what AlertLogic's providing. And so this slide is a good way to say that, look, buying a security tool is not enough. That doesn't make you secure. There's a variety of desired capabilities that companies want to achieve, right? They want to be able to identify threats. They want to be able to find vulnerabilities. They want to be able to monitor and analyze traffic 24/7. But buying a security tool is not going to help you do these things. And the reality is most companies don't have the resources or the employees, nor do they want to hire the employees or dedicate the time to be able to do all this stuff around the clock. So the AlertLogic approach is that there's really three key components to an effective security posture. The first thing that you have to have is there are, technologies, pieces of software and hardware that you need to help get you to the optimal security outcome. You need a log management tool. You need, a threat analytics platform. You need to be able to analyze the traffic that you're seeing. But with the technology, you also need content. A tool is only as good as the content that it has, and the security landscape is constantly changing. So being able to develop that content and keep your tools up to date, in a very real-time basis, is important. And so from there, if you have the required technology and you're able to develop and maintain and keep up to date the content, you then need the human expertise to monitor the tools 24/7, make sense of the outputs of the tools, and then take action, on what's happening. So our approach is that security is really three key components. And so again, with that, there are really, 6 essential security and compliance, controls that our customers are getting within our console. And that is, how we try to marry together those key components of you need technology, you need, process, and content, and you need people. So, again, our solutions are going to provide that vulnerability assessment to reduce the attack surface, the application layer protection to block those known bads at that most critical layer. And then from there, we're going to inspect all of the data from the network systems applications layer to be able to identify that suspicious behavior. And then, when we see that, when we detect that, we'll then go into a phase of analyzing it with our real security analyst to determine the criticality and, reveal, hey, what's an actual threat? When we do reveal an actual threat, from there, a member of our security operations center within a 15-minute SLA will reach out to, to our customers or really to our partners, to your team, to, help the customer, fix the problem within their environment. And as an offshot of doing those things 24/7, we're helping all of our customers to check their compliance boxes and to easily report on that. So a key component of our solution, we have Threat Manager at the network layer and Log Manager at the systems layer and what we call Web Security Manager at the applications layer. Now, that's kind of the name for the tooling and the process, but what we wrap around that, the lifeblood that really allows our 24/7 monitoring, escalation, the continuous updating, is a service which we call ActiveWatch, and that is our kind of managed threat detection. As you can see, in this loop here, what ActiveWatch provides is, a team of people who 24/7 are monitoring data from 4,000 customers, developing content, pushing that up to all of our other customers, keeping eyes on glass, watching customer environments, and basically constantly improving and sharpening our tool set, to benefit everyone that we work with. So to give a slightly more clear view, and specifically within an AWS environment, of what's important security-wise and what we're doing, from left to right, let's say this is kind of an end-to-end environment and what's required security-wise. At the application, at the foundational layer, you're going to need the ability to assess your configuration to make sure that things are configured correctly and up to date. From there, you need the ability to, you need insight into your traffic. So you need to be able to inspect network packets, to collect log data, and to monitor application transactions. So we want insight into all of that data. We want, so we have collection technologies which we deploy that give us insight into every area of that stack. From there, we take that data and we push it to our backend cloud, where it runs through our correlation and analytics platform against our signatures and rule sets, where we then perform anomaly detection and deeper machine learning, looking for more advanced attack types like SQL injection. From there, the security events that come out of what we're analyzing would get pushed to our 24/7 security operations center, where a real analyst from our team is going to dig in, determine if that's real and actionable, and if so, escalate that security incident to our partner like Escala or our customer and say, hey, here's what's happening and here's what you need to do to fix it. And then at that time, we'll start walking you through those remediation steps. From end to end, this kind of the analytics, the process side, as well as the 24/7 monitoring and alerting, that's really the ActiveWatch component. And on the left, the configuration management and best practices, that would be our Cloud Insight solution. And then the technologies that allow us insight into those layers of the environment would be Threat Manager, Log Manager, and Web Security Manager. Now, we marry all of those pieces together, with Cloud Insight being the configuration management, Threat Manager, Log Manager, and Web Security Manager being the technologies that give us insight into the networks, systems, and applications layer, and then the ActiveWatch managed security piece, being the lifeblood of what's fueling the tool. The marrying of all of these components together is what we would call our Cloud Defender suite. I know that was a lot at once. Alejandro or any of the other members of the team, on any questions up to this point on what we've kind of discussed here?
My question would be, can we, if the customer wants to, pick apart this offering and actually go by the specific modules or functionalities, is that something that's done, or is an all-in-one, all-or-nothing offering?
Yeah, great question. So it absolutely can be broken apart into a la carte pieces based on the use case, the customer budget, or the demand. So for instance, if someone says, hey, I'm doing something to monitor my network, or I don't really have budget, but I have to be able to take in and monitor my logs for HIPAA, we could just sell them Log Manager with ActiveWatch for Log Manager and not position Threat Manager, Web Security Manager, or Cloud Insight. So the answer to that is yes. We can break this out, break this up, and certainly customize it based on the customer need and use case. Does that answer the question there, Alejandro?
Yes, and as far as having a notion of the pricing, if price is an issue, would that be the way to go to actually pick apart or as you say, go a la carte, or
Yes.
Okay.
It certainly could be. So, for instance, if there's a significant budget constraint, what we may do is say, hey, instead of starting with Cloud Defender Suite, let's start with Threat and Log Manager Bundle because it's much more affordable. And as your business grows and we prove value and your budget grows, then we can add the other pieces.
Okay. And how would we get to the point where we understand what's the pricing structure of the whole and the pieces?
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about our pricing structure today. Jason will kind of cover how we license and price, and then Alejandro, we can cover offline, or I can send you kind of our pricing sheet, and you, myself, and Ben can have a call to go over, our detailed price list.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. So here's a quick view, everyone, of some of the most common compliance mandates which we see with our customers and partners: PCI, HIPAA, HITECH, and SOX. And here's a quick mapping that shows how our solutions can help our customers check a variety of boxes in all of those areas. That kind of wraps up my overview portion. And Alejandro, I'm going to send you and your team a quick one-page document that kind of overviews who AlertLogic is, what the value is, and a good kind of identification sheet as a result of this call. And then from there in this next section, Jason's going to talk a little bit more about value statement, licensing, and some of those other elements. Okay?
Thank you very much. Okay. So, Alejandro, thanks again for giving me time on your call. I know we spoke the other day. In short, you've now seen the value statement, sort of the value pitch a couple of times. But if we summarize why people buy AlertLogic, it's because they have security needs that are big enough to need real security, but they are not big enough to provide that security themselves, right? Perfect example. One that I like to think about is, let's say you have a doctor's office, right? Maybe you have a doctor and they have about 20 or 30 practitioners, maybe across 10 or 12 different clinics in a metro area or in a couple of states. To use a fine example, they have really serious security needs, but they don't have the staff to build out a full security operations center, 24-hour, hire the people, buy the tools, things like that. And getting good access to security content to make that useful is also really, really hard. So the reason why we exist is because we provide that security value back to the customer for much less than the cost of a single full-time employee. Also, too, when somebody builds their own, it takes them a long time to achieve value. If they buy Splunk and SourceFire and a bunch of other things, it might take them 6 months or 9 months to really start seeing any value out of it, and that's after they've spent a lot of time and money. Whereas with our service, you see that value on the very first day. So really, when we're looking for customers, we're looking for people who have sensitive data. So maybe that's PCI credit card data, or maybe that's health records, or just intellectual property, or protecting against ransomware and things like that, CEO fraud. And this is for people who are anywhere, whether they're on their own data center in their corporate environment, if they're in an enterprise hosting data center, or more importantly, if they're in the public cloud and hybrid. We find that there are very, very few companies these days that are 100% public cloud and there are even fewer that are 100% on-prem only, at least in the U.S. I know different parts of the world are different, but we find that almost everybody these days have at least some public cloud workloads, even if it's something simple like Office 365, and they need to be able to secure that seamlessly. And the existing security infrastructure that they've built out and operated for their on-prem, their on-premises environment, frequently does not scale directly into the public cloud. So being able to find somebody like us who can span between those two worlds is a big deal. We're also, people who need full stack security. We sort of sit in the middle behind a firewall doing perimeter, and in front of something like endpoint, like Cylance or Sophos, something like that. We sit in the middle and watch all the traffic in and out. And as John reviewed earlier, we review that suspicious traffic, the stuff that's hard to block, hard to understand, and requires human interaction. And then also to being able to have that completely done by certified security experts. John didn't mention it earlier, but we run 2 security operations centers, one in Cardiff, Wales in the United Kingdom, and one here in Houston, Texas, with over 200 people working in those security operations centers. So they're operating 24/7, fully backed up, redundant, trained, and well managed. The person who runs our security operations center most previously ran JP Morgan Chase's global security operations. So certainly, well-trained, highly qualified people. And then behind those 200 people sitting in security operations centers, there's over 40 full-time researchers that provide them with the content they need to be good at their job, that's a big deal. That's actually really challenging. So the kind of customers we look for, I mentioned it before, but people who are big enough to need security, which these days is almost everybody. I mean, it's really everybody. But can't necessarily afford to spend millions of dollars to build out their own capability and run it. So businesses that care about availability, I've met with customers before in the past who, you'll talk to them and they'll talk about how much money they've spent on their disaster recovery planning. They've talked about how much money they spent on highly available services with automatic failover and how they've spent a lot of time and money building resilience into their environment, but don't necessarily consider security to be an availability risk. But if your service is impacted by a security breach, it's just the same as if you had a power failure or air conditioning failure or a drive failure or whatever else that could cause availability problems. Of course, compliance is a big deal for us. We showed you a chart earlier about some of the compliance regimes we work within. And then reputation. These days, it's become more and more important as breaches become publicized. Whether you're a consumer breach, like somebody losing credit cards for consumers, or if your business risk is that your partners and colleagues are exposed, reputation is really, really, really challenging. Our main target prospects in the public cloud space that we've been the most successful with over the past few years are security as a service, so SaaS, e-commerce companies, and digital content. Digital content would be things like ads, publishing, video, things like that. It's actually a tremendous segment of the internet that we just described there, because almost every website now at least has some e-commerce capability. Going back to that example of the doctor's office, you may not think of your doctor's offices as being an e-commerce company, but when I go to my doctor's website, I put in appointment requests. I'm effectively making a purchase online, and I'm using my personal data to do it. And they use the same back end that I would if I was buying a T-shirt or a printer ink or something like that. Digital content, if you look at the internet, about 25% of the public internet is currently running WordPress as an application. That's strictly digital content sort of thing, whether that be a comments site or something else. You see that everywhere. And then SaaS really works well with us because we're a SaaS company too, and we understand each other. I'm going to send you these. I can send you these slides if you want. And I think, John, you said you had something too, a one sheet that you wanted to send out. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Gotcha. This sort of restates what we had before, so I'm going to skip over it and go right to common objections. So these are the ones that we see a lot. The first one, somebody will say, I already have a firewall. And that's great. You should have a firewall. Firewalls are important. We sit behind the firewall. John had a slide up earlier that showed suspicious traffic versus what we call known good and known bad. We are very specifically focused on the suspicious part. But we want the known good traffic and the known bad traffic to be classified by other security tools in the environment. So for the vast majority of our customers, we're sitting behind a firewall, and for the vast majority of our customers, we're sitting in front of an endpoint solution like Cylance or something like that. That's exactly where we're supposed to be, and then we can apply our superior capability to detect suspicious threats and understand them on the stuff that gets through the firewall, but it still requires a lot of scrutiny. Another one we get to is I want a tool that automatically blocks. We see that quite a bit. Why don't you just block it if you already know about it? And we do have some blocking capability for web threats, things like that. But what we find is being able to automatically make decisions about traffic and block them in real time means that you can't be very thoughtful about what you're examining. So something like an intrusion prevention system compared to an intrusion detection system like we operate, really there's a key difference there, which is you have to make your detection set very, very small and very, very specific, or else the risk of false positives will cause you to turn off blocking. So what we focus on instead is very rapid response to threats as they occur. And we find that we get the same kind of results as if you had a 50 millisecond blocking environment as far as the actual security risks. So the next one, we're too small to need security. That's a thing that people used to say a lot. We don't hear that nearly as much as we used to. But we might hear, yes.
Hold on. I want a tool that automatically identifies and blocks all threats.
Yeah.
Okay. So go back to that one again, because I didn't quite follow your logic on that one.
So think of it this way. Are you guys familiar with Tipping Point, the company Tipping Point, now owned by HP?
No.
Okay, so they invented something called an intrusion prevention system, and it's still a category that's out there in the world today, right? So intrusion detection systems, like we operate, will watch network traffic and identify threats based on signatures. Intrusion prevention goes one step further and then automatically blocks threats. The problem that we have, and when those were invented 15 years ago, they worked great. And the reason why they worked great is that they only needed about 1,000 signatures in order to meet the needs of about 95% of all the threats that were out there now. Now our signature database is in excess of 80,000 signatures. So the problem that we see is that as the number of vulnerabilities, the number of attack types has gone up and is so huge now that having a tool that within a few milliseconds can do a signature verification, review the actual attack, and make a decision successfully and block something in real time, the detection set is far too large. And what ends up happening is you get a lot of false positives, which lead to a lot of traffic being dropped that should not be. So the way we address that instead is with very fast detection and response. Since most major attacks take place over the course of 90 days to 240 days, according to Verizon's breach report, we know that our 15-minute detection window is a better way to handle that, so that suspicious traffic that needs analysis won't be blocked as a false positive, and we won't be lulled into a false sense of security that we're automatically blocking all problems. The perfect example of, yes?
So if I were to paraphrase or rephrase what you said, if a customer says, I want a tool that automatically identifies and blocks all threats, essentially, the answer to that is that tool does not exist. And if it were to exist, you would be having more issues than solutions with it, because you would be having, drop packets and drop traffic and whatever the result behavior is for a false positive, and for every false positive, you would be chasing behind the fixing something that's not even an issue. That's
correct.
Okay.
Correct. That's absolutely right. And don't forget too, because we're sitting behind a firewall, because we're usually sitting behind something like DDoS protection, where there already is a tremendous amount of sort of programmatic blocking that happens before we even see a single packet, right? So the obvious, loud, easy to identify stuff is already being blocked by a firewall. We're focused on the things that are dangerous, the things that are much more dangerous, that get through the firewall, that get through the defenses, and are now inside the environment doing whatever it is they do. That's where we focus our attention, which is why we focus on detection, because it gives us the chance to see the most numbers of threats and evaluate them with human and machine intelligence. Thank you. So the thing I'm going to, since we're almost out of time, I want to run briefly through pricing. So the way that pricing works in our environment is we price on two dimensions, basically. Number one, for the threat manager portion of our suite, we focus on the number of nodes that we're protecting. A node is on-prem, that's an IP address. So if you're in a customer data center, that's an IP address of a service that we're going to be protecting. If you're in AWS, it's going to be an EC2 instance, that sort of thing. So basically the number of nodes we're protecting, typically that equals servers, firewalls, routers, and switches. Not necessarily end user laptops and desktops. We don't focus on protecting those. And then the other dimension is gigabytes per day of log data that we collect, excuse me. So you were asking earlier about the suite. Obviously, the suite of Cloud Defender, which includes Log Manager and Extra Web Threat Detection and Threat Manager, along with vulnerability scanning, that is priced on tiers. So it'll say, 25 nodes plus 1 gig a day, or 50 nodes plus 8 gigs a day. I don't remember exactly what the tiers are. That's typically how we're going to price those. If you break out Threat Manager by itself as a smaller piece, then it's nodes only. If you break out Log Manager by itself, it's gigabytes per day only. And when you guys uncover an opportunity, we will help you scope that. So if you're talking to a customer tomorrow, all you really need to know before you call us in is about how many servers and network nodes do they have, and what types are they. So if you call John and say, hey, I have a customer that I'd like you to come talk to. I know he has about 50 servers, and most of them are Windows servers. We have the right information to get started to build a quote. We can then move towards a scoping exercise where we figure out exactly what we need, but we'll handle all that for you. And then the pricing itself will run through our normal process. Since you guys are partners with us, after deal registration, I believe you have a 20% margin off a list is how we work it. And of course, we're here to help you. We want to make sure you win the deal. So John and Ben and myself will be there to help you arrive at the deal that works for the customer the best. You don't need to be an expert on pricing the service, is the short answer there.
But even then, I understand the pricing is this quite simple because it's by number of nodes, and if anything, the perfect scoping would be the gigabytes a day of logs collected.
Well, you need both. So we need the gigabytes per day, and we need to know the number of nodes. For those are the two dimensions we need, and then we have tiers, and we'll fit to the closest tiers we need.
And Alejandro, on that, typically, if you can give us the number of instances in the environment and what that environment looks like. So if there's 100 instances, let's say, if you can tell us how many of those are Windows or Linux servers, how many firewalls, how many domain controllers, with that, we can help you figure out and estimate the log volume. So the primary thing is giving us the number of nodes or instances, and then just being able to tell us, what are those instances, and then from there, we can figure out the right log volume and, put the customer into the appropriate pricing tier.
Okay, and you have is there any formal questionnaire or formal, form that needs to be filled, or just the number of nodes and the function of it, and that's it?
If we start from there, we'll do the hard work of scoping for you. So we can talk with your customer with you and help you scope it out. There is a calculator we can use for gigabytes of logs, where it'll say how many Active Directory servers versus how many Linux servers, and it will come up with a more accurate quote. The good news is that we expect there to be some some variation from day to day in this environment. So the way that we price this and then enforce it is very flexible for the customer. So we're always understanding that log volumes will change from day to day. We're not, I don't want to say we're not strict about it, because we are, but we also we're not trying to prevent sales through this process, if that makes sense.
And yeah, with that, Alejandro, there's a very short kind of scoping form I can send you. It's an Excel document. It is that log calculator, and essentially, if you or the folks on your team can fill that out, and really what it is, it's telling us how many of each thing is there. How many servers, how many firewalls, how many routers and switches, how many domain controllers. If you can fill that out, that basically gives us the number of nodes, and that allows us to calculate the log volume. So it is one very simple Excel doc, and essentially, scope-wise, we're happy to help you get that, from your customer. Or if you're in a scoping phase, basically, if you can get your customer to fill that out, that will give us what we need. And I'll share that document with you.
Okay. And your expectations is that the customer should have a NOC or some side of, someone that's able to answer the phone 24/7.
Yeah, so not necessarily a NOC. A lot of times that that will fall to our partner, where we'll say, hey, look, you have Alert Logic 24/7, security monitoring, and from there, if we see something, we're going to escalate that to Escala's, managed remediation service, and that way you guys can sell, a managed service on top of that. But for a lot of customers, if they don't go the route of having a partner do the remediation, what we'll do is, as part of the onboarding process, we designate what we call an escalation path. So that means at any time, if we see something, the customer tells us, hey, at this time or at whatever times, if you see something, call this person, and that's a primary, and if that person doesn't answer, call this secondary person, and if that person doesn't answer, call this tertiary person. So we typically try to set up an escalation path so we can escalate to their NOC if they have one, or if not, just to the designated folks on their IT team, as well as into their ticketing system if they have one and would like that.
Okay, perfect. So I don't know
Excellent.
if anyone else has a question, or that that completes the presentation.
It does, Alejandro. We're happy to answer as many questions as you like, though. We, for us, we don't expect you to be experts on our service. We expect you to understand the basic value of what we provide, to be able to talk about it in sort of broad strokes, but then to bring us in. We don't. We want you to feel comfortable that we're going to come in and move your deals forward and help you close it, and that's what our goals are.
Okay, and I guess we still have a conversation with Ben that although you're saying that you don't need us to become an expert on the tool, at least we would like to become somewhat familiarized with the tool. So maybe we can wait to close the first opportunity and then address this. But at the very least, we would like to be able to have access to a console in order to be familiar with, if a customer has any specific question, and we're more than just a proxy that's just forwarding all the questions to you with no added value, or we're not capable to fielding at least the very simple questions on the tool. So in order, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Alejandro, that's a great point. And honestly, what you're explaining is what we want. Our goal is just typically, we want to start out quickly with you guys. And so the best way to do that is to let us help you, right? Let us be the experts on the tools. Let us help you sell it. Let us help you scope it. But as we go, we certainly want to train you and your team more and more. And, today's session and the session yesterday was a starting point, but we're going to want to do more of these sessions. We're going to want to do these kind of trainings regularly on a quarterly basis, as we work on deals. And as we work on deals, you guys will start hearing more. And as we get down the path early next year, Jason and Ben can help set up, a more detailed, partner training and a longer multi-session technical training, day and portal walkthrough. So there's certainly things we want to help you increase your expertise as we go, but we also want to start off quickly with you and start winning deals together as fast as we can, if that makes sense.
Okay, understood.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.